In 1736, a Philadelphia politician turned his fiercest rival into one of his closest allies, using a request that had nothing to do with charm. He didn't compliment him, he didn't impress him, he simply asked to borrow a book. Weeks later, they were speaking like old friends. Franklin had stumbled onto something psychology would later prove. Liking isn't decided by what you say, it's decided somewhere else entirely, and almost nobody notices it happening. Most people think likability comes from being interesting, funny, confident, easy to talk to. It doesn't. The brain decides whether it likes you before you've said a single memorable thing, and once you see what's actually happening underneath, you start noticing it everywhere. Underneath every relationship, a friendship, a romance, even a 5-minute conversation with a stranger in a checkout line, the same hidden process is running. Psychologists have studied pieces of it for decades under different names, but the full pattern rarely gets explained in one place. Call it the liking ladder.
3 rungs, climbed in a strict order. Skip the first one and it doesn't matter how funny, successful, or interesting you are, nothing built on top of it will hold. Understand all 3 and something else happens. You stop just reacting to people. You start predicting them, whether 2 strangers are about to become friends or never speak again. Most advice about likability focuses on what to say. The latter is about what someone's nervous system decides before any of that ever gets a vote. Rung 1 is safety. Before the brain asks if it likes you, it asks something faster and older. Are you a threat? This isn't a conscious decision. It happens in the amygdala, a part of the brain built to react to a new face in a fraction of a second, long before you've opened your mouth. Psychologist Alexander Todorov found that people form judgments about a stranger's trustworthiness in about 1/10 of a second just from looking at their face. 1/10 of a second, faster than a blank, which means the safety check is already finished before your first sentence lands. A calm, steady voice does some of this work almost as fast as a facial expression does. It's part of why documentary narrators and therapists tend to sound slow and even. The pace itself is doing reassurance work before a single word has been processed for meaning. Even something as small as a steady handshake or an unhurried hello gets read by that same system long before a resume or a title ever does. This is why overeager charm often backfires. Big gestures, too much eye contact, too much energy too early. The brain doesn't read that as friendliness. It reads it as unpredictable, and unpredictable fails the safety check, no matter how good your intentions are. It's also why plenty of impressive people are respected but never liked. They pass every other test except this one. Watch a first date where one person can't stop cracking jokes and topping every story. It feels charming to them. To the other person's nervous system, it can feel like standing next to someone unpredictable, even when every word is friendly. That's rung 1, quietly failing in real time. Once someone clears that first rung, a second, quieter test begins. Rung 2 is sameness. Once the brain decides you're not a threat, it starts hunting for evidence that you belong to the same tribe. Not race, not background, pattern, shared references, a similar rhythm of speech, the same small habits. This is why 2 strangers who discover they grew up 3 streets apart suddenly relax around each other, even though the shared street means nothing practical at all. The brain isn't tracking facts, it's tracking category. Same as me gets filed under safe, different from me gets filed under monitor. This is also why mirroring works. Not the exaggerated kind people teach in seminars, matching someone's crossed arms a second later, but the natural kind, matching their pace, matching their tone, slowing down when they slow down. It's not a trick, it's a signal the brain is already built to look for. Sameness isn't only about facts you share, it shows up in pace too. A slow, calm talker sitting across from someone rapid fire will often feel a low-grade friction neither person can name. Match the rhythm, and the friction disappears before either of you knows why. Even word choice plays a part. 2 people who unconsciously start borrowing the same slang, the same pet phrases, the same rhythm of humor within a few minutes of meeting are running this exact process. Sameness quietly confirming itself in real time. But sameness only gets you so far. It makes people comfortable. It doesn't make them attached. That takes the third rung, and it's the one almost everyone gets backwards. Rung 3 is significance. This is the one that actually creates liking, not just comfort, and it has almost nothing to do with you. It's about what the other person feels about themselves when they're around you. Think about the most magnetic person you've ever met. Chances are you don't remember much of what they said. You remember how you felt while they were listening to you. Relationship researchers call this self-expansion. The sense that another person is making your own mind bigger, not smaller. It's why we're drawn to people who ask a real question and actually wait for the answer, and quietly repelled by people who steer every conversation back to themselves within 30 seconds. People don't chase those who impress them. They chase those who make them feel more like themselves. This is the part most people get exactly backwards. They walk into a room trying to be the most interesting person there, talking more, performing more, working harder to be remembered. But every extra minute spent trying to impress is a minute not spent making the other person feel significant. And significance is the rung that actually holds weight. You've probably met one person in your life with this ability, a teacher, a boss, a relative at a family gathering. 10 minutes with them and somehow you left feeling sharper than when you arrived. That's not charisma in the way most people describe it. That's rung 3 executed almost perfectly without ever mentioning itself. Here's where it gets counterintuitive. Go back to Philadelphia, 1736. Franklin didn't win his rival over by doing him a favor. He did the opposite. He asked his rival for one. He requested a rare book from the man's library, thanked him, and returned it a week later. That was the entire interaction. But something shifted in the rival's mind that had nothing to do with Franklin at all. Once you do something for someone, your brain needs a reason why, and the easiest reason to reach for is, I must like this person, otherwise why would I have helped them? This became known much later as the Franklin effect. Doing someone a favor makes you like them more, not the other way around. Effort creates ownership, and ownership gets rationalized as affection. This is the real conflict sitting underneath most failed first impressions. We're taught that to be liked, we have to give compliments, favors, energy, attention. The latter shows something almost backwards. Sometimes the fastest way to build a bond is to let someone invest in you, not the other way around. This is the twist almost nobody uses on purpose. You don't always earn liking by being useful to someone. Sometimes you earn it by letting them be useful to you.
Put the 3 rungs together and you get more than a theory of liking. You get a prediction engine. Watch any 2 people meet for the first time and you can already guess where it's headed. If the first exchange feels tense or unpredictable, rung 1 has failed, and nothing said afterward will fix it that day. If the conversation feels easy but forgettable a week later, they cleared rung 2 and never reached rung 3. And if someone walks away from a 5-minute conversation feeling smarter, funnier, or more interesting than they did before it started, that's rung 3. That's the one people remember for years. The latter also explains the connections that should have worked and didn't. The interview where you said all the right things but the room still felt cold, rung 1 never cleared. Something about your pace or your posture registered as risk, and no answer could outtalk that. The friendship that stayed pleasant for years but never got close, stuck on rung 2. Comfortable enough to sit next to, familiar enough to relax around, and nothing more, because significance was never built. And the person who liked you almost instantly for reasons neither of you could explain, rung 3, working exactly as designed. You made them feel like a sharper version of themselves, and their brain filed that feeling under your name.
The networking event where everyone was polite but nobody followed up afterward, that's usually 2 rungs failing quietly at once. No real safety, so nothing worth remembering, and no significance, so nothing worth reaching back out for. The same ladder explains why some long relationships quietly go cold years in. Rung 1 and rung 2 stay fully intact. The other person is safe, familiar, endlessly known. But rung 3 erodes slowly, the sense of being made bigger by them feeding into routine. Comfort survives, significance doesn't. And most people can't explain why it feels flat, because nothing dramatic ever happened. Rung 3 just stopped being maintained. Once you can see the rungs, awkward silences and quiet distances stop feeling random. They start feeling like information. If this framework is making sense so far, tap like and subscribe. It keeps this channel going. Now, here's how to actually use it. Start noticing rung 1 before you try to be interesting. In a job interview, slow your speech down and match the interviewer's tone before reaching for your resume. Unpredictability reads as risk, and risk fails the safety check every time. On a first date, skip the performance and find one real point of overlap. A show you both watched, a city you both lived in. Sameness does more work in the first 10 minutes than any rehearsed story. In any conversation that matters, ask one real question and actually listen to the answer, because the person who leaves feeling smarter or more understood is the person who remembers you a year later. That's rung 3, working exactly as designed, and you didn't have to perform once to get there. Making people like you was never about being the most impressive person in the room. It's about making them feel safe, familiar, and slightly more like themselves. The people we remember aren't the ones who performed for us. They're the ones who made us feel seen. The next time you meet someone and feel an instant connection, don't credit chemistry. Look for the latter. Somewhere in those first few minutes, you felt safe, you felt similar, and without noticing, you felt just a little more significant.